the Staff and Grab podcast. Rachel, what's up?
Oh, nothing. I'm just out in the middle of nowhere chilling with my doggo and buying a bunch of on sale Easter candy because what else would I be doing?
It's pretty rad. That's pretty rad. I think it's really cool, Rachel. I just banged my freaking elbow on my desk so hard. So hard. Ow. God damn it. We're off to a great start. I am just sitting over here marveling at the fact that Ivan Fedotov is actually going to play NHL games.
Yeah, he's here in North America.
I cannot believe that is happening based on the fact that I was wondering if he'd be able to live a normal life at one point. So that's pretty sweet. We might as well hop into it in that Ivan Fedotov, he signed his ELC with the Philadelphia Flyers. That's the team name. And he is going to, it reported right to the team, like him and Samuel Ersson
are playing.
They're now the two goalies of record. Felix Sandstrom was sent down. But what is crazy, and the reason why we're making a big deal about a 7th round pick from 2015 finally making to the NHL, is that the guy was detained by Russian authorities back in July of 2022 and was labeled a military service evader by the Russian government. Now, if I don't want to be labeled as anything by the Russian government, I think that's just a bad idea.
Let's maybe stay away from the Russian government.
Like, especially getting labeled as something. Not great.
So you got sentenced to his year of military service, but I found it highly, highly interesting that he was playing for the team who was owned by effectively the Russian government, if we're being honest. And the moment that rumors started percolating that he was going to leave the next season to join the Philadelphia Flyers, miraculously, they were like, actually, military service. And it's like, really? So you allow everyone else who plays for the team is allowed for that to count against their military service because they're effectively tied to the military. But because this guy wants to go play in the NHL, all of a sudden, all the years that he's played for the team doesn't count anymore. Actually, totally out the window. Like, they're just making up rules as they go, clearly. And then, like, he gets detained outside of the hockey rink and has to, go enlist in the military. And then he gets sent to, the middle of fucking Siberia.
No, you know what the biggest thing with this though is, so he gets detained outside of a hockey rink and he gets transported to the military enlistment center, which I have to imagine is probably the most depressing and scary building in the world. But then when he gets there,
nice, right?
Oh no, it's probably horrible. It's probably because it is probably
on a jail. It might be a jail.
Yeah, but what happens is he gets there. And then he falls ill.
Yes.
And has to get transported.
Heavy quotation marks on that one.
Has to get transported to the hospital. And so I go, I don't think the guy just caught the flu when he was in transport to the military enlistment center.
You mean to tell me, Mike? You mean to tell me that a country where people miraculously fall out of windows for no apparent reason have a perfectly healthy 6'8", 23-year-old.
He was 25 at the time, so 25.
Or 25, and all of a sudden he gets sick after he leaves a hockey team? That seems a little bit suspect, don't you think?
Like he doesn't just get sick right after he leaves the hockey team. He gets sick on his way to the military enlistment thing because they had to hunt him down because he was listed as a military evader. I don't think so. So that's pretty on pretty TV. Rough. And then he was signed to a deal by CSKA, Moscow, which is Red Army, which is, but we're
they're
talking
called
about
the
here.
Red Army, guys.
Yeah, I mean, come on. But it was ruled illegal by the WIHF.
Yeah, the WIHF was like, sorry, that's not a thing that can happen.
So this guy, he's, I don't know, things have happened around him and to him. And so the fact that he is here.
Thrilled that he is safe,
alive.
Well,
is anyone really safe in Philadelphia?
Okay, are you more or less safe in Philadelphia than you are in Siberia?
Yes, you are. But only by a
Yeah,
little,
well.
but only by a little bit, because you never know.
I'm just
Gritty.
happy. Like, this guy very clearly wants to play in the NHL, had to go through some things that I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say probably should not have had to go through those
Mhm.
things. And it seemed real political. And now he's with the Flyers. They did a ton of work to get this over the line, and secretly, so that he didn't get recalled to like a fucking penal colony again.
Mhm.
And nothing happened. And then I know that the Flyers were pissed when it leaked out. Like, if you think about it, Elliot, Dreger, like LeBron, they know when this stuff comes out, and none of them knew until like the contract had already been signed. It just hadn't been announced yet. Like, there was no rumors of Ivan Fedotov type situation. It was like, nope, he's here, it's done.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just great to see. It's great to see that he is, like you said, safe. He's going to continue his pro hockey career in, the Premier League in the world. And we'll have to see. Like, the thing is with Fedotov too, and when this was all going on, I didn't really clock his age. The guy's our age. The guy's 27.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty wild. Like, he's I guess you can call, like, you can't call him a prospect. He's a guy who's coming over, but I'm really interested to
Well,
see how he plays just as
he lost a year and a half of development.
yeah. Well, and
So
not
he's
just because of
effectively
COVID, but like,
yeah. Let me be the person to say something that might be a little bit more serious than COVID.
yeah, it's pretty nuts. So
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. He's, like you said, he's 6'8". He's like 225 pounds. He's a big boy. I'm really fascinated to see
That's a
how
man.
yeah, that is a man. See how that plays. Our
The
PWHL
best
report.
part about it is
Oh.
people are like, oh, like, how are you gonna deal with like the Philadelphia media? He just served.
Dude,
in the
he dealt with
military.
the
I
Kremlin.
think he's gonna be
Like,
all right.
He probably dealt with the KGB. I think he'll be fine with the Philadelphia media.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure. Like, imagine he just gets like traded to like Montreal or like some hockey hotbed, and they're like, "Oh, how is he gonna handle the media?" It's like, he's fine. He'll be
Like,
good.
along the way, he probably like he probably got like sat down in a room with a literal KGB agent. Like, and yet, yeah, your dog's chiming in on it.
Yeah.
He probably got sat down in a room, like an interrogation room, with like a literal KGB agent that was telling him stuff. So I think he can handle like Sam Karkidi or whatever, like asking him
Yeah.
about
Anthony Sanfilippo.
exactly. I think he'll be fine. Like, it'll be good. All right, our PWHL report. There's not really much to talk about other than the fact that the Women's Worlds are kicking off April 3rd to April 14th in Utica. So obviously the PWHL has taken a bit of a breather to let its players participate.
Which is the right thing to do, objectively speaking.
It's the third time that it's being held in the States. Hilary Knight was obviously very good in it last year. But I have my doubts about Hilary Knight this year. I haven't been wowed. And so I'm interested to see if she really kind of, on the international stage again, turns it on.
Yeah, I feel like there's certain players where it's like, yeah, they're excellent hockey players, but the second they put on the nation shirt, the nation jersey, whatever sport it is, they just are different. Ryan Smith comes to mind. Like, the Oilers, yeah, like, he was a top 6 player, played at the net front. Guy's known as Captain Canada. Like, he's just different, right?
Like, Ryan Smith was fine. He was, like you said, a top 6 player. You don't label Sidney Crosby a top 6 player, like, when you're talking about him, like, he was a perfectly fine, like, maybe quasi first line, like high end second liner, but he gets on the international stage, guy dominates.
Yeah, he's just absolutely incredible. And there's guys like that in soccer. There's, I mean, less so in basketball because the US pretty much like dominates, generally speaking. But like, there was a time when like Luka Doncic was in his draft year, and people are like, who is this Slovenian kid that's like showing everybody else up? And
who's like 14.
Luka Doncic is who that is. So it's one of those things where Hilary Knight, I'm interested to see as well. Marie-Philippe Poulin is clutch all the way across the board, but particularly when the Canada jersey's on, you can count on her to at least score 1 game-winning goal, if not a few more than that. She hasn't been like her Poulin self in the PWHL this year, in the sense of like we expect her to dominate, and she hasn't.
She's
I'm
been
not going to
fine.
be remotely surprised though if she's the best player in the tournament. We're all like, oh yes,
There she is.
There she is.
Yeah. All right. Well, now let's get into our deep dive, Rachel, because, you know, like this is the time of the year when there's not a ton of headlines to go over. There's not a ton of like the PWHL report is literally on a break. So we're just going to rip through it. So it'll be a shorter episode today, but I want to take our listeners behind the scenes, to how I did the prep today. Because
okay, I'm so scared. I don't know.
No, it's fine. It's but because you know, like us being in Toronto and all that, we don't watch a ton of Jets. Like I've tried to, but I'm not exactly as like I don't watch every single Jets game from start to finish. I'll watch the highlights, you know, I'll stay informed, but you know and so I have a very good friend named Braden Chalice of Can't Teach Size and formerly of Game Over. And he loves his Jets. He lives in Winnipeg and all that. He's one of my best pals. And so I text him and I go, hey, I was at work. And so, you know, I had
to work on Easter Monday. Hang on a minute.
Yeah, man.
What?
Well, no, everyone does, other than government jobs.
Oh, the bank. Yes.
And
okay.
banks
because
my
only non-sports job has been at the bank. So it's like I either went from like you're not allowed to go home at Christmas to you have every holiday off
everything
imaginable.
It's crazy.
You know what I mean?
Whereas
like
we had to work
difference?
today.
Okay. But you had
I had to go in the office. Right? I had to go in the office today. Yeah, we got Good Friday off. And my office is great because it has like we do half days before the day of the long weekend. So like it's pretty great. The office closed at 1 on Thursday. So I got to stroll out of there, which is cool. But so I didn't have a chance to really check my phone after I didn't have a chance to like put the prep in right away. So I texted him, I'm like, hey man, we're doing a deep dive on the Jets today. You know, I have some thoughts and whatever, and I put them in here, but like what I want you to do is I need a favor. I need you to tell me what you think is wrong with the Jets lately. And then I put my phone down and I did a bunch of reports and corporate stuff, whatever. And I look back on it and this guy has sent me a fucking manifesto. Like he counted. He's like, he typed in one text, 1,227 words of what he. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And so,
oh my God.
And then he was like, sorry, it was so long. And I'm like, dude, thank you so much. He's like, oh, and I forgot to add stuff. And he put like, I didn't put everything he said in here but it's crazy. Like,
should you just come on and read the text?
I literally should have. Like, I should have just like sat down and be like, all right, here's what's wrong with the Jets and read off everything. But there's a lot and we'll get into it. Namely starting with their 5-on-5 play. But I just wanted to, before we got into it, I wanted to give a shout out to Brad because he is just like steaming over what the Jets are going through right now. And
he's pissed.
And he was happy to just like cathartic. It was like cathartic for him to let it go. But all right. Before I think what happened with the Jets is there were 3 stages of the Jets season this year. There's before the Kyle Connor injury. There's during the Kyle Connor injury, and then there's after the Kyle Connor injury. Okay. And before the Kyle Connor injury, the Jets were a pretty middle of the pack 5-on-5 team. Keep in mind, Kyle Connor's a very good player, like basically 50 goal scorer. Like, he did great on my fantasy team this year. I can tell you that. He's a very good goal scorer, basically. But Kyle Connor goes down, and the Jets immediately turn into one of the best, if not the best 5-on-5 teams in the entire NHL, because it forced Rick Bowness to start using Nikolai Ehlers a lot more.
Yes.
And they put together a line of Velarde, Scheifele, Ehlers that was, I believe, by definition, like by statistics, the best first line the Jets have ever had. They were ripping on teams to the tune of 58.3% expected goals at 5-on-5. This is over an extended sample. Then Connor comes back, and Rick Bowness has some sort of fetish, and we don't like
every coach has this fetish, by the way. Like Paul Maurice had it. They all don't play Nikolai Ehlers enough.
But we don't like to kink shame on this podcast. We're open minded, but at least I am. We're all open minded on this podcast, but Rick Bowness has a fetish for playing Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele together. He just cannot. He will never ever take them apart. And ever since they came back, where they put Connor up on that line, they've been shockingly bad, like to the tune of like 34.9% expected goals of 5-on-5.
Whoa!
Like 30, like under 35% expected goals. That's their top line.
20, like almost 25% worse.
They're like, yeah.
What are you doing?
So
you have to switch it up.
But Bowness just refuses to. And in that time, he's made Cole Perfetti a healthy scratch. He's and so that would be worse if not for another problem that they have, which is that their shutdown line, the quote unquote shutdown line or whatever, is Adam Lowry, Nino Niederreiter, and Mason Appleton. And the thing about those guys together is it's as if together, like maybe not apart, but together, it's as if they're a bunch of Alex Kerfoots, in that nothing happens when they're on the ice. They are Metapod.
Okay, so generally speaking, if that's your shutdown line and nothing happens offensively or defensively when you're on the ice, that's a net positive, because you're often going up against the other team's top line. So it's like, if you're not getting anything, that's fine. But if you're not giving up anything to the other team's top players, that's good. A+, well done. However, your first line can't be getting shelled to the tune of 35%.
It's crazy. And so you basically agree, like if you're the Jets, you agree that for 15 minutes of 60 minutes of regulation, we're going to let nothing happen. Like we're just basically going to hold for, okay, cool. But then your top line probably plays together, cumulatively 18 to 19 to 20 minutes, and you're getting fucking shelled. So that's 35 minutes where you're either, that's 35 minutes of the 60 minutes of game time where you're either getting absolutely bombarded, like absolutely just shit kicked up and down, or nothing is happening. That doesn't leave a lot of time left to score goals, which you need to do to win a hockey game.
You do.
At least more than the other team.
Well, that's news to me. Yeah, I mean, that's such a stark contrast. And I've seen it talked about. I've watched the Jets a little bit more of late, just because I was like, what is happening to them? Like, I'm curious. So I've actually watched quite a few of their games of late. I'm also in the middle of literally nowhere, so I have nothing to do but watch hockey at this point and read books. I've read 3 books in the last week.
That's great. You also do, like, I don't care where you are. That's no excuse to be watching the Jets. I don't care how bored you are. You're never that bored.
Okay, so the option was watch the Jets, go swimming in the swamp.
Great, I would do that. Swamp swimming. Let's go.
Swamp. So I think what we have here is we have a big enough sample of Vilardi, Scheifele, Ehlers. And now that Vilardi is back and healthy, there is no reason to not put that group together. Then you have Toffoli, Connor, Monahan. That could be fun.
You spent a total, you gave up a first, a second, and a third combined to get Monahan and Toffoli. So you might as well play them with good players. Might as well use them.
And you've already, I mean, Ehlers looks great on that line, but I think the common denominator here is Nikolai Ehlers. And so maybe you want to have some balance. Like, Toffoli and Monahan are responsible enough defensively. Like, Monahan had a crucial mistake in the game against Ottawa. And like, the broadcast was talking ad nauseum about how that is so uncharacteristic for him. And they were right. He and Toffoli are usually very defensively responsible. And so you can afford to have somebody like Kyle Connor on that line, because you've got 2 very solid two-way guys. Whereas if you have Connor and Scheifele and Vilardi on the same line, there's not a lot of defense being played.
No,
and that's
not
probably
at all.
Why they're getting shelled. Whereas Nikolai Ehlers drives possession. And you need a guy on that line very clearly, because you're getting murdered 35%. You need a guy that can drive possession, and Ehlers can do that. So I think having a line of Ehlers, Scheifele, Vilardi, and then you go Connor, Monahan to Foley. Then you do your Lowry, Appleton, whatever else you want to do, Nino Niederreiter, probably. Like, then you've got 3 lines where, okay, third line, nothing really happens, but you're not getting scored on. Second line, you're hoping you get some offense, but you know you're getting solid two-way play, and you've got a guy that can score some goals on that line. First line, you know it's dominant. So it's just a different way of deploying your players, and I think they need to evaluate that and kind of go from there. But should we talk about the third line? Because I feel like being no event is sort of weird. No?
Yeah. So they look fine when it comes to expected goals. Like, they're just kind of middle of the pack. They're fine. But it basically is like I always say, like a line of all Alex Kerfoots. Like, nothing happens when they're out there. They are Metapod. They are hitting you with Harden until like their defense rises, but they don't do anything. And they're getting played in second line minutes, basically. You
can't have that.
Yeah, like, it's good for a shutdown line or whatever, but they're getting played like top 6 minutes. That's just not possible. The one thing that Brad himself sort of pointed out to me, and is that it's his belief, and I would like to get your opinion on this. It is his belief that the Jets have too much of one type of player.
Okay.
Like, they have too many
metapods,
too many shooters, basically.
Okay.
Like, they have, like, because they went out and they got Toffoli, which is great. We basically glazed all over that.
Toffoli acquisition.
But he's very much like a pure shooter, and not much has, like, if you look at after their deadline, because I thought they had a great deadline. They went out and they got everyone that they needed to. Like, I think it was great. But nothing has really changed. Like, there hasn't really been any stark improvements. And he thinks that they have too many of these one-dimensional, not distributors, sort of like guys who can take a one-timer, but you need guys to set it up. And especially if you're gonna toggle Cole Perfetti in and out of the lineup, it just seems
also
like
a bad idea.
Yeah, it just seems like a lineup that's not set up for success.
Yeah, okay. So there's part of me that agrees with Brady and part of me that disagrees with him. So, do the Jets have a ton of shooters? Yes, they have more than your average roster. However, if you deploy them correctly, then you're going to get opportunities up and down the lineup. You cannot deploy no one that is a possession-driving player on your top line. That can't be an option. Nikolai Ehlers is so very clearly their best possession-driving forward. He is a dual threat in terms of the fact that he can score, but he distributes the puck exceptionally well. Mark Scheifele played in the bumper for years and years and years for a reason. He shoots the puck well. Nobody who plays in the bumper is an excellent distributor of the puck. That's not how that works. And so when you look at it, having Ehlers, Velarde's a pretty good dual threat. Like, he can drive possession. He's a good two-way guy. He's not only a shooter, but he's also been injured for a while. And so I think if you have Scheifele in the middle, but you've got Velarde and Ehlers, who are pretty good two-way guys that make up for, even though Mark Scheifele's been better defensively this year, like, he's still not good defensively.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't go from he just went from being one of the worst in the league to, like, passable kind of thing. And that's great.
Like, you can put him on the ice. And
exactly. So I think you need a possession driving player with him. And so Ehlers seems like that natural fit. You stick Velarde there and you know that combo works. Then you have Monahan, who this season and even towards the end of last season was a possession driving player. Tyler Toffoli, even though he is a shooter, is a possession driving player. And so you have Monahan. Monahan is he's not a shooter, wasn't drafted as one, hasn't been one. Like, can he score? Yes. Is that his calling card? No, absolutely not. And so you have him and he's in the middle of the ice. He needs to be able to drive that line with Toffoli. And then you have Connor, he's become a little bit more of a dual threat offensively, but he is genuinely awful defensively, which is why Connor and Scheifele can't play on the same line. And I don't know how many coaches it's going to take to figure this out, but so, like, they can't play on the same line because you're going to get caved in.
It's like
Like you just are.
it's JVR and Kessel all over again, or like Kessel and Bozak all over again.
Yeah.
You know, like they score 1,000,000 goals and it's great and it shows up
But
great on
they're
highlights, but they give up
terrible.
like 30% more than that. Like it's now I have a question before we get into the power play because it kind of ties into it as well, and then we'll wrap things up. But like, why does every coach not trust Nikolai Ehlers?
Because he turns the puck over sometimes. So they see. Okay, remember Jake Gardner?
Yeah.
Okay, so Jake Gardner very obviously brought way more positives than negatives, but the negatives stood out, and that's what people remembered, right?
Yes.
Jake Gardner was a net positive to the point where like we had to have arguments with people who tried to tell us that like Garnet Exelby was better than him, and it was like,
That's
shut up.
That is a deep cut. Mike Kostka, if you
Yeah,
will.
exactly.
Yeah.
We're in a similar situation here where like Nikolai Ehlers is very clearly the best possession driving player on the Winnipeg Jets, and it is like not particularly close. But sometimes he turns the puck over at the blue line, and that's all coaches remember. So they're like, oh, he's less reliable than Kyle Connor. And it's like, okay, would you rather, Mike, as a coach, I am going to stab you 1,000 times.
Great.
Or I'm just going to shoot you in the foot once. Obviously, being stabbed 1,000 times is worse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're getting with Connor is the fact that, okay, yeah, might not turn the puck over at the blue line and lead to an odd man rush the other way once a game, but 10 or 12 times a game, he's going to make a terrible play on the puck defensively, and that's what's causing your possession to go completely in the tank. And that's the difference here is Connor makes mistakes that aren't necessarily as noticeable, whereas when Ehlers makes mistakes, he makes them far more infrequently, but they're more noticeable. And coaches see that, and that's what sticks with them. It drove me nuts in New Jersey. It drove me less nuts in Vancouver because Bruce has an affinity for offense and is okay with his guys making mistakes as long as there's a defensive effort. The problem with Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele is there's not a defensive effort. And so you can't have 2 of 3 players on a line not making a defensive effort and being irresponsible with the puck. Like, it doesn't work like that. So I think from that perspective, it's just because Ehlers' turnovers stand out a little bit more, and that's kind of why he gets the knock against him. But anyone who's going to sit here and tell you he isn't the best Jets forward is wrong.
So remember how you were saying like that if you're in the bumper, it's not because you're a great facilitator. Like it's not. So before they got Monahan, the Jets were playing Cole Perfetti in the bumper.
What?
Which just
Why?
makes no sense. Then they got Monahan, and Monahan's been a great bumper for them. But in their last 21 attempts on the power play, they've scored once. They're 1 for the last 21, which is
that's
brutal.
Less than 5%.
They're 17.997% on the year, so that's middle of the pack. But for a team,
3.5% in their last 21 attempts. Bad.
Exactly. And keep in mind that pretty much all those came since they got Tyler Toffoli, Mark Scheifele, guys like that. When you have the personnel that the Jets do, because you look at the Jets, you don't really think that they're crazy stacked, but you look at their offensive, firepower. You have Kyle Connor, who's got a great shot. You have Mark Scheifele. You have Nikolai Ehlers, who we'll get to again when it comes to power play usage. But like Sean Monahan, Tyler Toffoli, like all these, Gabe Velarde, these guys, you should be clicking a lot better than very much like I think they're 16th or 17th in the league on that. It's brutal. And so a big thing was that Gabe Velarde was freaking awesome net front because he's huge, but he's got some silky smooth hands, and he got hurt. And so they replaced him with Tyler Toffoli, who again is a great player. No one's debating that, but he's not the same player as that. He is a shooter. And so the touch, I would say, around the net didn't necessarily translate as well as when Velarde was the guy there. And so it's been a calamity. It's been a problem all season, but lately, obviously, it has been a disaster. You can't think to go far in the playoffs when you're riding a streak of 1 for 21 on the power play.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have a dysfunctional power play than a dysfunctional penalty kill, because at least if you have a dysfunctional power play, you're not giving up much. But if you have a dysfunctional penalty kill in the playoffs and you're getting scored on, that's a problem
Yeah.
because goals are hard to come by in the playoffs. No Ehlers on power play 1 though is certifiably nuts.
It's crazy.
Like, to me, I look at this and I go, okay, when Gabe Vilardi is healthy, that's your net front kind of shift guy. When he's not, that's Kyle Connor. They've had success with Kyle Connor there in the past because he moves in and around the net, and he's scored nearly 50 goals. Like, he's got good hands at the net front. Cool. Nikolai Ehlers needs to be on the flank. No ifs, ands, or buts. Josh Morrissey at the top. Once again, no ifs, ands, or buts. So we've got 2 guys that need to be on the power play without question.
Yeah.
Cool. Then we'll get to Gabe Vilardi. You have Mark Scheifele, and you can go Sean Monahan. Whatever. I personally would probably have Sean Monahan on the second unit with Tyler Toffoli. Or what you could do is, if you're playing Monahan and Toffoli on the top unit, that leaves Scheifele with Niederreiter and I guess Lowry on the second unit. The problem that you have is, like, Kyle Connor is a tough nut to crack as it pertains to the power play. If he can continue to be a dual threat, then I think he needs to be the guy that plays the other side flank. So then you can have Vilardi at the net front, Ehlers, Monahan, Connor, and then Morrissey at the top, and that leaves you Toffoli, Scheifele, Niederreiter, Lowry, and I guess Neil Pionk for the second unit. And those are 2 decent power play units. But I think at the end of the day, you need to have your best dual threat on the ice on the power play. And so first option of fixing the power play, put Nikolai Ehlers on the first unit. Just put him on there.
But they're afraid to. They never do. Like, this has been this is a problem under sense. I know this is a problem under Maurice. This is the only, like, I'm telling you, man, I would notice it myself, but also, like, Brad would never shut the hell up about it because it would be nonsensical.
I don't understand Ehlers' deployment in Winnipeg whatsoever. It makes no sense to me under multiple coaches now. Like, I think they get the Scheifele Connor blinders on, and it's like, that's not what's best for the team. What's best for the team is for those 2 to be separated. Like, yeah. Full stop. And so if you want to fix the power play, you can't pull we've tried nothing and we're all out of ideas. I have an idea. Play your best player on the top power play unit. Like, it would be certifiably insane if another team did this. If the Rangers took Panarin off their top PP unit, if the Leafs took Mitch Marner off their top PP unit, if, like, imagine if the Oilers took Draisaitl off their top power play unit, you'd be like, what are you doing? Like,
it would make no sense. It would be crazy.
And this is where I'm at with the Jets. It's like, we've established that Nikolai Ehlers is a good hockey player. Can you just play him on the power play, please? Appropriately? Like, this is not that hard. And so they're shooting themselves in the foot with how they deploy Ehlers, both at even strength and on the power play. And until they figure that out, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah. Well, I think that's pretty much all that needs to be said.
Absolutely
okay.
not. We have,
All right.
Defensively speaking.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Like, defensively speaking, Neil Pionk has been.
Oh, yes. Neil Pionk has been. I cannot believe I forgot about Neil Pionk. He's been a disaster this year.
Oh,
specifically lately.
Yes. Like, if Nikolai Ehlers had the same results as Kyle Connor and Neil Pionk did, he'd probably get traded.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he'd probably be traded. Pionk is a black hole this year, and I'm not really sure why. Like, he had started to go downhill last year, and part of it is like, okay, he lost his best friend at the beginning of this season.
Yeah.
And that is traumatic. That doesn't explain why he was poor last year. So, like, this has been going on for a while now. And it's to the point where, like, Josh Morrissey is really all they've got. And he hasn't been as good this year as he was last year. He was at the beginning of the year, but similar to Morgan Riley, like he's fallen off. Erik Karlsson's fallen off. Like they've fallen off defensively. And like if you look at the Jets as a whole defensively, there was a stage this season where they did not give up 3 or more than 3 goals in 35 consecutive games. That is nearly half the season. They didn't give up more than 3 goals. 35 consecutive games. They've given up 3+ goals in 7 of their last 10, and they've given up 4+ in 5 of their last 10. Just to put it in perspective, the San Jose Sharks have given up 4 goals in 7 of their last 10. So you're marginally better than the Sharks defensively right now?
And we're supposed to call you a contender?
Like, the PK is 24th. It's giving up way too many. Like, I ran my model, and based on the amount of quality shots they're giving up in the inner slot, if I replaced Connor Hellebuyck with a league average goaltender, they would have the league's worst penalty kill. It would be worse than San Jose's.
And even Hellebuyck, and this is more a product of just like the top line being garbage defensively, especially lately. Like Hellebuyck has been somewhat human in the last, I would say, 10, 15 games.
Yeah, I mean, he's still going to run away with the Vezina. Like, it's not close. But if you are giving up the amount of shots from the inner slot and the amount of scoring chances from the inner slot, be it at even strength or on the power play, as we get towards the end of the season, your goalie is going to be tired. A la Vancouver Canucks, Thatcher Demko got hurt. So, like, literally injured because of his workload. Connor Hellebuyck is facing way too many shots from in tight. They cannot box out to save their lives, which I frankly don't understand given how big some of the people on the back end are.
Well, you have Logan Stanley and you decide to
Nate
play
Schmidt,
him every night.
Right? Dylan DeMello's decent, but like Neil Pionk, obviously not that big. Josh Morrissey, not that big, but you got to be able to clear the net front out. Like you just do. Logan Stanley, no exception. You should be winning pretty much every net front battle, unless it's against like Matt Rempe or whatever the case may be. But for you to have a PK that's 24th when you have the Vezina Trophy winner in net tells me that you are giving up way too many scoring opportunities that are very difficult to stop, quite frankly, because Connor Hellebuyck, the Jets give up a ton of shots from the outside, but Hellebuyck thrives on that. He's like, yeah, that's fine. Like, whatever. You start giving up shots within 3 feet of the net, that's a totally different level of workload that you're putting on your goaltender. And so defensively speaking, the Jets, so the specialty teams are a problem because the power play can't score and the penalty kill can't keep the puck out of the net. The defensive strategy and behavior is not good enough of late. And Rick Bowness, to his credit, said, he's like, this just is not good enough. Like,
so do something about it though. Like,
but so, and this is the thing is like, yes, they're making mistakes and you can only switch up so many things. Eventually you're just going to have to make a fucking play, but you could put your players in a better position to succeed. And you could start by doing that by putting together the line that was dominant at 5-on-5 for a good chunk of the season. Start there, see if it helps your defensive issues, and then make some adjustments. But you can't do nothing, and that's where I feel like the Jets are right now. And so I feel like there are some things that the Jets can do to tinker with the roster that they already have. It's not a flawed roster, and they just aren't doing them, and I'm not really sure why.
Is it okay to say we've talked about everything now? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's hope.
Well, you skipped half the goddamn prep. Like I had to like bring it up.
Well, it was just the defensive stuff. I thought.
Oh yeah, just the most important thing.
Yeah. Well, anyway, the Jet. Look, I think the Jets had a great. Like we've to conclude basically. I think the Jets had a great. They had a great trade deadline. They have a coach that the players clearly believe in. That could obviously be making some better decisions, but we'll see. I think that this is a team that could go far just based on the fact they have an amazing goalie, but there's definitely some issues they got to sort out, and the clock is ticking, man. Like there's like 10 games left in the year. Like there's some less for some teams. Like they gotta figure it out soon. So that being said, follow us on YouTube, on Twitch, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter, on any podcatcher you possibly can, because that's where all our episodes are. Make sure you write us a review, you rate us, and also to donate to Jumpstart. It's our charity of choice. Jumpstart helps economically disadvantaged children play team sports, which is very important to their development and the cause that is very close to the hearts of Rachel and I. All the links and everything that you need to, if you're able to donate, will be in the description of the episode. So be sure to check those out. And Rachel, I will see you on Thursday, on Friday.
We'll get there eventually.
We'll do it. We'll figure it out. Bye.